next one right after, and then we'll have a little break, and then you're okay to do a little spiel on.
I'm sure I'll have a few things to say. No big deal.
What's your last line on starting from page 8?
Starting on page. Starting with
Ossifer, yeah.
Drunken, and then to page 10 where rhythm's like a storm of applause.
Oh yeah, that's great.
The static to applaud to
the static grew
begin to play.
The static grew louder.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I wanted to include that part, and then I thought, well, I can see her trying to get out of a parking ticket. Maybe that'll be amusing to people. I don't know.
Yeah.
You're saying this is on page 299? The last, when you say that? I don't see it.
See.
Is it in the middle of the page? Oh, it doesn't really matter.
It should be like the middle of the page.
I'll listen for you.
Yeah.
It's all good. And you're going to be reading 1, 2, 3, 4 pages.
Yes.
Switching. Okay. So you're going to read 273, 274. Then you're going to just finally switch over.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to exactly. That's like one page there, and then another page that's like exactly. I'm not reading all those pages in between.
No, right. It makes sense to me.
Okay, good.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so hopefully it's not like too much words, but then
This is just my friends and
overwhelmed by
you
choices.
It all works.
Ooh, so good.
And then,
That's what I'm gonna do. I have something here that's 7:33, so I have to actually use some art in that. Yeah, figure out when to drop the needle.
I got my timer. I'm going to use my stopwatch. I don't have a sense of 10 minutes.
but I would still love to show it to you.
All right.
Yeah. Hi. I think it's time we had some art in here. I don't know. Maybe this place needs more art. I might not be quite enough art. I am Elizabeth Costello. You might know me as Liz. You might know me as just a total clown or an enthusiast. I respond to all of those things. So this is my novel, The Good War. Yay! And many of you have heard quite a bit about it over the years. Andrew Joran's in the house. He gave me such a boost when I needed it. So thank you, Andrew.
Yay, Andrew!
And an amazing edit. And Suki and Rent agreed to play some music, and I thought we could maybe raise some money for Outsound. So so I'm gonna read a little, then Suki will play, then I'll read a little more, then Rent will play, then we'll have a break, and you can buy books. I hope you will. And then we'll come back and do a little more stuff. How's that sound?
Good.
Yay!
It's an out sound.
It's an out sound. Sound it out. Oh, it's always an out sound. So this is early in the book. It is 1948, and Louise Gall, who is a mother of 4, former Rosie the Riveter. She works at the NIH as a chemist now. She's a widow. She and her mother are both widows, and so she has just met a man named Kit Blunt, who was a prisoner of war with her husband over in the Philippines, and now she got drunk. Her first meeting with Kit didn't go so well, and so now she's drunk. And she sees a cop. He's about to give her a ticket. And this is Bethesda, Maryland, 1948. Ossifer, she said, half falling off the curb and laughing a little at how drunk the word was. She corrected herself carefully and tried again, putting on her brightest voice. Evening, officer. Ma'am, this your car? Depends, is that ticket for it? She smiled, but he did not return her look. Did you see the fire hydrant? I suppose I didn't. Well, I'm sorry, but this is for you, he said, tearing a ticket loose from the book and holding it out to her. Louise ignored his gesture, opened her purse, and took out her faux gold cigarette case, which the unblinking moon had turned a cinematic silver. She extracted a cigarette and asked the policeman for a light. He squinted at her. It's not a trick question, she said. He seemed to want to tuck the ticket under the windshield wiper, but she stood between him and the car. He placed the loose ticket on top of the ticket book and stuck the book under one arm. With the other hand, he patted the pocket of his uniform and extracted an Army-issue Zippo lighter. Were you in the service? she asked, accepting the flame. Yes. I thought so. Where were you? She held her open cigarette case out to him, but he waved it away. Prefer cigars, he said. I came in late. Germany, mostly. Eastern Europe. Would have been sent to the Pacific, but the bomb saved me. I loved the bomb. I was lucky. You were. My husband died over there. A lot of guys did, he said. There was something defensive in his tone, but he kept the ticket and book tucked under his arm. My husband lived through Bataan, then got torpedoed on a POW ship in the South China Sea. Say that 5 times fast. A POW ship in the South China Sea. You don't say. He seemed a little suspicious now. What was the name of the ship? Orioku Moro. She could see that he was listening closely now. My father was captured on Corregidor. Colonel Walter Deal died in a camp on Formosa. He was in MacArthur's class at West Point. And before all that, there was my brother, killed in a test bomber explosion over Hawaii 6 months before Pearl Harbor. She changed the timing just a little bit. It seemed more poignant if Bruce had died in 41 instead of 39, when there was still hope that somebody else would kill the fascists. Boy, that's plenty. Oh yeah, and my mother's brother, my Uncle Peter. I never knew him. He was killed as a civilian in London during the Blitz. So he's not really part of our story, which is the Pacific, really. She could see she was losing him a bit. She changed course, gave him her softest look. I'm sorry. You must have had a time there, too. Not as bad as that. I'm standing here now, got a wife and a kid. I do all right. You got kids? 4. She said, letting that hit before she landed the KO. It's tough on a secretary's salary, but I get a lot of help from the other Gold Star widows in the neighborhood. She's not a secretary. Sounds like you better get home to those kids, he said. Was it a trick of the moonlight, or could she detect the beginning of a tear? Thank you, officer. She opened the car door and got in, then rolled down the window and held out her hand. I'll take that ticket now. Consider it a warning, he said, giving her his straight-up American apple pie smile. He lifted his cap, and she flashed him a fine, gleaming row of pearly whites. She turned the radio on. It had been oddly staticky lately. Sometimes it produced nothing but a strange metallic hum. This time it worked. That apple tree song came on again. She pulled out onto the road she knew so well, and for a few blocks she sang along. Don't sit under the apple tree with anyone else but me, anyone else but me. She felt gleeful about her small deception, about the perfect, tear-jerking detail of the secretary's salary, about slipping free of the rules that applied to other people. The foolishness she'd felt on discovering that Kit had left was altogether gone now. Whatever fun she'd thought she might have with Kit, the fun of a man who was alive, who was more than a memory overlaid with the dark water of the South China Sea. It was fun she didn't need. She had what she needed, and everything she needed was hers. But then the song was over, and the static returned, the sound of particles in motion, of magnetic fields. This is ridiculous, she thought, slapping the dashboard. I just bought you, car. She turned the dial, but the sound was all static, and the static, it seemed to her, was becoming increasingly mathematical, rhythmical. The way a rush of wind in leaves can be a kind of rhythm, a sound that says everything is alive, everything but you. Stop it, Louise. She forced herself to stop moving the dial, to get back inside her feeling of glee. She had dispensed with Blunt almost as easily as she had dispensed with the cop. Yes, he hadn't left. She'd shooed him away. She'd shown him how little she cared, that she was tired of caring. So many cared about her already. Her children adored her. They lined up to give her kisses, to show her their report cards, and every day she could leave them, leave Mother to the household drudgery. She was free. Let us take these days. Who said it? Someone had said, let us take these days, these peaceful days, for peace, for prosperity, for pleasure. For pleasure, she whispered, and then said it aloud. For pleasure, Roland. She called his name out once, twice, 3 times. There was no magic in it, no curse. The static grew louder, its rhythms like a storm of applause. Very nice reference to the crunching of the tires on the stones, which I didn't read that part, but thank you,
It
Suki.
stuck with me.
Yeah. So the next part that I'm going to read is, so the book is sort of two narrative streams. One is 1948, the other is 1964. And in the 1964 section, we're with Charlotte, who is the daughter of Louise, who we've just seen getting out of the ticket. And it's during the pandemic, I don't know about you, but one of my sort of happy fantasies was of being in like a sweaty New York City jazz club in the early or mid 60s, because it was so not where we were. So that informed my writing of the 1964 section. And then I realized that 1964 was the year that Eric Dolphy's Out to Lunch came out, and that's such a great record. And so my character's kind of obsessed with it. Yeah, exactly. So you'll hear that. I think you'll realize that that's referenced in the book. So I'm going to read a couple of sections with Charlotte walking down the street with Eric Dolphy in her mind. It's good to be able to read your own handwriting. Oh, yeah. With a sudden brass blast, the record began, a herald for the walker in the city. Charlotte listened, Charlotte walked with, Charlotte was the protagonist of Out to Lunch. The music made patchworks of city people, cut one shape and laid it out against another, where the shined shoe of the doorman at the Astor met the dirty scurry of the running rat. Here was the headline damning the society lady. There was the old man in the newsstand slapping the hand of a would-be chocolate thief. Here was the landlady selling soup dumplings. There, the blind man shouting, "Hey," as the coins spilled from his cup. Here, the switchboard operators putting down their headsets, and there, the dwarf with the cart selling a sandwich. Another brass blast was the neon sign martini glass flashing. The vibraphone tones with the rhythm were the rhythm of the flashes. The bass in the back was the talk of the mafia men. The drums tripped out like the high-stepping trot of the eager young photographer catching Joe DiMaggio eating a hot dog. These were the directives given. Have a chock full of nuts and take the stairs to the train 2 at a time. If she left now, she could make it to Schnapsley's in time for a strudel before work. But when the second side was over, Charlotte flipped the record and started it again. She lit a smoke and put on another pot of coffee. If I can just listen carefully enough, she thought, I'll understand the magic of this music, how it cuts and collages, how it unifies and makes particular. I'll pick up my wire cutters then, she thought, looking at the collection of dismembered coat hangers piled on the coffee table, feeling a sculptural urge like a spike of the fever to make that had gripped her the night before. But no, I see it now. I need finer wire, yards and yards of it. After arguing with Ed, that's her brother, she had come home and put on the record, her ears perking to it like a dog's cocking to a whistle. As she listened, she began to draw, barely seeing what she was drawing, careening through the pages of her sketchbook, sharpening and resharpening her pencil down to the nub. She turned the record over and over, and the lines on the page looped and repeated and varied their themes. The sketchbook had only 2 previous drawings in it. One, a scene from her window on Houston Street, the other, the window itself with its sooty curtain half hung out. This was something different. She didn't usually draw her sculptures first. They were just a bit of foolishness, she always said. Just things made from scraps of other things. Broken umbrellas, used brassieres, wind-up toys she glued to other wind-up toys. She bent and wrestled the wire until it became a winged bicycle or a fish struggling on a hook or a wheel of fortune that wouldn't spin because it was a square. But that night she sketched and sketched something different, the kind of thing she had never made before. She became so involved, listening and re-listening to the record, drawing the orb and what was inside it, what complicated its surface or cut it in 2 or 80 or 32 parts that joined and made the whole. She was so involved that it was past midnight when she realized that Gil hadn't come by or called. That's her girlfriend or lover. Lover is a better word. They hadn't had a plan exactly, but it was Wednesday, wasn't it? Hadn't Wednesdays become regular for them? Still, she kept working, smoking, drawing, listening until she heard the 3 bumps of her downstairs neighbor's broomstick thudding up, making the universal request to quiet down. I'm going to read one more Dolphy-laden section. Oh, yeah. Okay, here we go. I do know this book. I know it pretty well by now, shockingly. So I just can't remember. Where did I say I was going to start? Somewhere on 298. Yes, I see. Do I want that? How many paragraphs can I inflict upon you? Okay, I'm just going to say here. She turned down Broadway, walking briskly through Times Square. In her mind, Out to Lunch came back, the sudden blasts of the horn that changed the music's direction, like the decision of one pigeon to do something different that would bring all the others along. The blasts were like the sudden opening of the metal doors in the sidewalk, the sudden presence of a stocky man in an undershirt rising up out of the sidewalk on a loading elevator, like some hairy-knuckled Venus on the city's metal clamshell. Then there was the cart vendor selling chestnuts and the man who bought a bag, then smashed the bag against the sidewalk screaming, "They're all burnt, all of them." and the bespectacled woman walking with him, patting him absently on the arm. Charlotte was caught in it again, the rhythm of the city, walking through it with Dolphy's music as the soundtrack to the blinking neon martini, to the argument of two pimps, to the pawn shop desperation and the Italian waiter calling out, "Hey, psst," gesturing to the door of his little restaurant. "Hey, lunch." Well, we're gonna take a break for about 15 minutes, and you can buy books, and I will sign them, and a portion of the proceeds from the books will go to Outsound. And I'm also selling my chapbook here, Relic, which was put out by Two-Way Mirror. Marina Lazara is the mastermind behind that, and all of that, I think we'll sell them for $10 each, and all of that money will go to Outsound. And you could also give more money to Outsound. They're great. So thank you, everyone, and thank you, Eric, for having us here. Woo!
And what are you doing after the 15-minute break, Liz?
Oh, good question. We're doing more things. After the 15-minute break, I'll be reading a section where the character takes some LSD. In fact, I did an earlier reading here some time ago where I referenced some of that same material, but this time these guys will be backing me up. This time we will be on LSD. Oh, perfect. Thank you.
You haven't heard that.
Okay. How are you?
So they like the main ones. The bust out.
I'm gonna buy a book. Oh, have you gotten signed? No, I think I thought if I another one, I thought these would
You don't have to.
Exactly. No, I think mine was like 10 years ago. I was hoping for a flashback today. Hey Jeff, how you doing? Oh, what's happening there? No.
do it.
I love to. Yeah, try to. Try to do it. I can fly. Test you separate. I am. But now you do it. Go ahead.
That sounded real good, Red. Right? Is that all right? Not surprised.
You were checking in with the dolphin.
Early listening.
Yeah.
Oh,
It paid off. It paid off.
Oh, really? It's been a while. Yeah, and that's a rare thing. I usually don't do so. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I read it before.
Oh. Right. Good. I'm glad to hear that. I think always my biggest worry is running out of ideas. Hello. I'm good. Good to see you. Thank you. Well, this is what we need. Well, no. That's not. Yeah, that's not. I don't even know when I'm gonna put that stuff in I know. I hope so. I mean, to me, that's like it's a way to foil things out. And I like what the story format has. Ephemeral nature. The theory is gone. But I mean, I still have it. But the idea is I'm just kind of testing things out, seeing if it flows.
Came to another.
You know, I make edits from time to time. Maybe. It just depends on where they're at. Yeah. No, and I really appreciate it deeply. I've learned to say thank you. It's taken a long time. I'm gonna go with yeah. That's Kaylin. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Big supporter.
Oh yeah. Okay. Let me grab a pen. So are you still writing?
there you are. I was hoping I would run out.
Figured it.
Yeah, I hoped it. I was like, which reading? Okay. Alright, so stories. Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah. I'm gonna go grab Liz. I'm gonna give her this pen. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's okay, so I can tell you. Oh, I remember you, Merlin. Yeah, the milk bar. That was really cool. That's your.
Yeah. You can read a really good part with her. That's going to be great. 6 months. You know, we're crowding her now. That's a good thing. So familiar. I'm sure we've been in the same room a bunch of times. Yeah. Probably here.
That's sitting right there. I like to think that. Yeah, I mean, people are, I mean, like, I find this, and it is what
Another copy? Yeah. Trying to get rid of it.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, you got a parallel? All right. Okay, good. That you're here and I got I just think so often that you read this and support like a book that I didn't like. But I'm so really proud of you. Yeah, right on. That kind of, I'm really fine with it. I think like for a while I got myself yes, like I was like, well, she was at the front. It's real considerate. I mean, I know what you're getting at. Yes. Well, I'm so sorry that you can't make this along with take care of it. I can take care of the stuff. Oh, great. Yes. I do have a pen back. So don't lose it. Because they know I have the they have green in the middle and yellow on the two sides. So maybe it's implied that red is so I don't know, but
played for the Timberlands, the Wolves, the Timberwolves.
So that's how I oh wow.
So can you go back to Sal's? So the Timberwolves are ahead of us. Click on Go to Sleep. Okay, I know, but they were ahead of us. We were 8. They were 7. But now that we've won, see, we're tied with them. But if they lose, then we're firmly in 7. Yeah. Because when you're tied, where you are has something to do with this team. You don't understand. It's like how many games you've lost or won if you're tied. So yeah, exactly. So that's why we're part of the game. But if they lose, well, we should stay in 7. And then I think the Clippers tomorrow night, unfortunately, I think they played Hornets. One game, of course, it's the whole rest of the season.
Telling Brian, TV studio. I'd also love to get you a trio. The Evidence Trio. It'd be interesting to get Evidence Trio down and do a show.
You guys
That's not my art life part. It's my because we were out and I did a show.
No, you said it like you were in the very
Really? It wasn't that much. Really? I think it was the do-over. It was the do-over. Yes. And I just, yeah, and your kids had to play, it was one week. It was, yeah.
But it can be weekday, weekend.
Artist and bring artists together, and so she's going to do that with her book video. She will probably do stuff with found footage or like archival footage.
But also the image on the book, like did she send you that there's that great little
That'll be a nice
like
way
a kind of gift size thing.
Yeah,
The video
of the book cover.
of the book cover. It's like a moving bow. It's really somebody made that. Is it on your website?
Yeah, it should be. It must be.
Anyway, this is
Yeah.
feature it.
Yeah, probably use it as an ad. It's like, oh, then you got to go get this book. You know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You guys read it?
He's gone now.
I read it. I haven't read this version. Okay, you read it. I read it. Yeah, I read it. Maybe. Yeah. 2019. Right. Yeah. Before COVID, I read a version. Yeah. So I haven't read this one. It's really great. I can tell.
Finished.
Yeah.
I started reading a PDF and then I was like, no, I need to wait for a physical book. Yeah, that first chapter was a killer. It's like,
Oh yeah.
and the guy and like the drinking.
Oh, it's
I don't love her, but I'm hooked.
I don't want to.
Yeah, I didn't
Yeah. I will have her sign my card. Yeah. I didn't even think to bring it.
Oh, yeah, I should get her to sign too if you would have come and That's where they sign.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Hopefully next year.
Did you hear that?
A little bit, only from the.
You heard about five bullet points about what they Brian's wife, she's a federal judge.
And you knew she
Yeah.
Yeah. I reconsulted it half an hour.
She got that letter. I don't know if she's
Right.
She's also. I know. Yeah, everybody. But she, and Judge Ann. So I spent a lot of so I think it's just great. She started like
I did it. For me, New Hampshire, I did have one
hold it
really
inside.
staying with a friend whose family was
That was a good department then.
Oh, struggling.
Yeah, and
Is that all the right?
driving wild for the hiring. Oh yeah, she applied. I don't know exactly when it was. Maybe it was more than I don't know how long it was. So yeah, so that's older than Brian.
and then you
I had a stint in so. I watched a lot. They got rid of all except for one. But the next semester, of course, was doing that she was no, I just have to get on it. We're actually we got out of it, but
So kind of it never occurred.
You liked it, right?
I really don't.
You know they're starting again soon, but how you doing? Yeah? You got you out of your editing hubble or whatever?
Sort of been out of it for 2 months. I've been in a funk kind of, and I'm just crawling out of it now. It's all right.
Oh,
Sort of
this is a
just
good place to call out.
a lot of just different things.
maybe it was pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
Those were some weird times.
Yeah.
Unlike now.
Yeah, different times, different places, different transitions, you know, so. But I actually, Outsound really came out of vanity. I couldn't, you know, a lot of musicians, a lot of artists, performing artists have the same problem. I'm sure those of you who are performing artists can understand this. It's like, I got to get a gig. Where am I going to get a gig? No one wants to have me play a gig. And in my case, being too out to be in and too in to be out, which is like the theme of my entire life, made it exceptionally difficult to find performance opportunities. So I just said, well, screw that. I'm just going to put on my own damn show. And so I started doing that when I moved here to the Bay Area. I mean, the first thing I did, and that's how I earned my name, Rent to Romus, rent, because I used to put up my actual rent money to have shows and hope for the best. So, and musicians started calling me that. So that's kind of a little origin story. In 1999, I decided that I wanted to have a regular series, and so I ended up working at putting shows on at 848 Divisadero at the time, which started Sim Series, and Sim Series is still happening today over at the Musicians Union Hall, at least once a month, sometimes more than that. And then in 2002, I ended up being a volunteer at the Luggage Store Gallery, New Music, Creative Music Series. New Music has changed names over the years. And one day, the curator who I was assisting just didn't show up, and I had the key. So that very much began a 23-year stint at the Luggage Store Gallery, which I just ended because they're selling the building this year. That's okay. I was actually very happy to walk away from that lovely place. Now, and don't get me wrong, beautiful things were happening there. So in 2008, Outsound, the idea of an artist-run nonprofit organization that supports the community and also communities coming in, wide open, all about inclusivity, equity, support, biases out the door, because we were supporting experimental music that many people were very afraid of, and something that also I was personally exploring as well, because I come from a very jazz-damaged background. So, and Suki O'Kane is actually one of the original founders of Outsound Presents, I want to say. So it really means a lot to me to be here and performing with Suki, because, yeah, I know you want to remain anonymous. Too bad. A lot of artists who are in the community today were helped to make this happen. So anyway, long story short, started 2008, and we've been presenting I've been presenting up to upwards of maybe 2,000 concerts. I've lost count, and a regular festival that happens every year. And we still, our main focus is performing artists here in the Bay Area and other communities in the underground music scene, but also it's all about original music. We don't care about genre per se. We just care about creativity and the power and the spirit of what we're trying to do. So we are a nonprofit. So if you ever need a write-off, you can go to outsound.org and make any kind of donation you want. And all that money, the lion's share of that money goes right back into the pockets of the community. None of us are paid staff at all. I'm a volunteer. I'm the ED for Outsound. And that was the thing when we formed it. We didn't want to become like a lot of other organizations where their staff are worried about paying their own bills, because then it takes away from the mission of supporting the artists, which is the main reason for having this damn organization in the first place. So we do that, and then of course there's overhead with other things. And we're trying to fund our series, the Sim series, which is still happening, and support giving artists some somewhat decent livable wage, which I did a pilot for a while because pandemic, we had a little extra cash, but now we're back to door. So this year we're trying to build that back up. Anyway, so there it is, outsound.org, check us out. Come to the Sim series, you see our calendar. Outsound New Music Summit happens end of July at the Berkeley Finnish Hall and over off of Chestnut, off of University, and it's always a surprise. So thank you. Thank you very much.
I like that. Always a surprise. Well, it's such a great community, and I'm so glad we're all here together. Thank you for being here. Thank you again, Eric. Thank you again, Rent and Suki. And I thought Rent was like a Finnish name. I didn't realize it was Yeah, what's your real name? You don't have to say. That's okay.
Well, it's no secret, but you'll have to dig. It's there, and some people know it. But the thing is, what is a real name? I mean, here's the thing: if someone writes
LSD
me a
is kicking
check,
in.
if someone writes me a check, the bank, they know. I found out that they actually know my aliases, so it's okay.
To the bank.
Yes, let's.
It's gonna start on like 159.
Yeah, I'm gonna start over there, and then we'll just see what happens. Right? This is the experimental portion of the evening.
And when do you want to come back?
Whenever, as soon as it's done.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So I'm going to read a couple of sections from. We're still in 1964, and Charlotte is on LSD, and she has gone to see some music.
And Liz, can
yeah.
I ask you where you're starting?
Oh yeah.
159.
No, I know, but where in 159?
On the line, Charlotte didn't recognize the opening act on stage now. It's the second paragraph from the top.
On 159?
On
Page
159. Page 159. I begin in the middle of that sentence, first sentence on the second paragraph.
Okay.
You see it?
No, but that's fine.
Okay. All right.
I'll figure it out.
Whatever. It's all. Just put that Pink Floyd album on and turn like Airplane, the movie on, and it will all make sense. Charlotte didn't recognize the opening act on stage now. A trio of bass, trumpet, and piano. Sound came from behind and beneath, from all around her, though seemingly not from the musicians themselves, who, as far as she could tell, were working on a different time signature than the rest of the world. They seemed to her to be playing at a different rate than that of the sound that was being produced, as if their instruments had been dubbed in later, like English over some Italian actors' voices. The thought of later led her to question the meaning of now. And following her own line of reasoning, she began to laugh, and then laugh at her own laughing, and then laugh at knowing she was beginning to feel very, very high. She was transfixed by the bass player, his long fingers plucking the strings, striking the spine of the instrument. She was certain she could feel his fingers on her own spine. She took hold of Katie's arm and squeezed it. When their eyes met, they both began to laugh. Somewhere in front of them, a man shot them a look, slid his stubby finger across his throat as if to slice his Adam's apple in two. The woman he was with, a gay-mind beauty with cropped hair and a neck as long as Audrey Hepburn's, turned back to look at them and shrugged. Another man turned and told them to hush. His face a rat's face with a pointed, quivering nose and long front teeth. They could hold back their laughter, Charlotte thought, as long as they didn't look at each other. She turned her eyes to the stage, but her sight was confused by the thickening of the clouds of smoke that became opaque things. Katie handed her another lit cigarette, her hand emerging into Charlotte's field of vision as a disembodied thing, the reach of an angel from the depths of a sweet, brown-leafed paradise. Charlotte wanted to go there, tobacco heaven. She drank in the smoke like a sacrament, let it fill her throat and lungs with holiness, let her breathe holiness out into the holiness of the room filled with supplicants genuflecting to the jazzmen. The bass line was a transmission of a heart beating. The sounds were warm and dark. The room, Charlotte thought, was full of hearts and lungs. If she closed her eyes, she could see them beating, the division of colors into squares of themselves. Blue is as blue does, she thought. Alarmed by the clarity of the thought, how full of meaning it was. Meaning that could be extracted from everything and painted on to everything else. Whoever they are, they're really, really, really good, Katie was saying. She was squeezing Charlotte's arm now, so hard that Charlotte thought that it should hurt, but it didn't hurt, because hurt was just something on the list of possible feelings. Yes. The word was the only one that came out of Charlotte's mouth, but there were others, thoughts embodied in these packages known as words. They were like children running for the front door, trying to escape some parental tyranny. They fell into the door and collapsed, blocking their own way out. Katie had somehow maneuvered them to a table, and they were sitting down, Irish coffees in front of them. In a flash, Charlotte missed the end of the opening act. The stage now held no one but the bass player removing his instrument. She believed for a moment that the stage was framed for her eyes only, that its clearing and filling was a matter of the opening and closing of her eyelids. What else could explain the disappearance of the beautiful trio? I shall call them Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Charlotte said into the room. There's going to be a little bit more. Let's see. Oh, yes. Okay. This is a good part. I don't know what I meant to read before, but this set them off again. They were laughing. Charlotte fell forward in her chair, grasping her gut, then stayed in the position, admiring a spill on the floor, the shimmer along the surface. The different ways of light on liquid revealed to Charlotte the simple truth that she, Charlotte, was actually 9 personalities, at least 3 of which were male. 3 threes, wholly, multiple, evolving ever after. After what may or may not have been a long time, she pressed herself back up and planted her elbows on the table, prepared to explain this to Katie, but Katie wasn't there. Charlotte felt more than saw the presence of other bodies streaming in from the world outside this place, this classroom or cell or club, like a club foot, like some appendage on the body of the city, thick and limping with its own rhythm, yet, yes, real, integral to the whole body of Manhattan. A place like this was where people came to be with others, to be aligned with the heat and rhythm of each other, to give themselves over to the heat and the rhythm of the next jazz man, Oliver Nelson's group that they had come to see. Charlotte could see them now stepping onto this stage as if they had come from separate planets but arrived here all at once with perfect, easeful timing. The declaration of the trumpet, the clarification of the saxophone. The conversation of these instruments transfixed the presences that filled the room. Charlotte among them, her jaw dropping open, staying open. The other sounds coming from the other instruments she might distantly name, the profound disordered order of the sonic interchange that played as colors across her tainted vision. The piano making bright prints across the throbbing, living carpet of the bass, the brass receding, threading through the weave to explode along the fringe and then return to the center, to seed the new arrangement, to bloom and burst forth. Then I'm going to read one more little paragraph. And then the lights were dimmed, and again the music came and took her over. The jazzmen bent Charlotte to them. They brought the whole pussycat to its knees, begging for more and more and more of the deeper, truer mirror it held to them. One phrase and then another. It played with their expectations. Some old familiar melody. Don't sit under the apple tree. Was that it? The brass said yes, then appended the formula. Turned short, pretty parts long, pulled and exaggerated, and then trimmed off, brushed with the silver brush across the drum head, the trail of little stars in water like phosphorescence in the ocean, the flute that flew like a hummingbird, no, a butterfly, no, a flutterby. The laughter boiling up again inside her, the thoughts that flew like the fast-moving clouds that rode away on the smoke clouds that were in this basement room and were as thick and real as her own hand, her own mouth. Like the cigarette she found now in her fingers that she remembered now to bring to her lips. There was Gil and Louise, each on a cloud, each that hung in the air that blocked her view of the jazzmen. No, it was them. They were truly her saviors, these men, these masters, who were right here and now remaking America, who could, Charlotte thought, save America from itself. Thanks, everybody. Now let's go make music and art and save America from itself.
Yes.
We can. I'll sign more books, and should we? Is there a hat that we can put cash into for Outsound? Does someone have a bucket? Okay, there is something up front for that. Well, thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Hey, Suki! Thank you!
Elizabeth Costello and
All right.
the writer.
Yes. Yes, we all work so hard.
I know.
That was very beautiful.
Burning the oils.
That was a lot
No,
of
I
fun.
think we're pretty true.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
That could be the, could be the LSD talking.
Yeah. I know. Maybe we should, actually do that sometime just to see what would happen. Although we already know. 'cause we've all done
It just happened.
Yeah,
We can watch
that's
YouTube
true.
tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. Then we'll find out what actually happened.